welcome to the launch of the East Asian-Australasian Regional Flyway Initiative. I'm very happy to welcome our panel and to have the opportunity to talk to you today about this important initiative. My name's Warren Evans. I'm the Climate Envoy for Asian Development Bank. And I'd like to first introduce our panelists. On my far right is Becky Spate, who's the CEO of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Becky is running the largest conservation CSO in Europe with 1.2 million members and is responsible for 200 nature reserves. Becky provides the vision to drive the development and implementation of the RSPB strategy to deliver the RSPB's charitable objectives and maximize its mission to save nature. She joined RSPB from 2019. Prior to that, Becky was the CEO of the Woodland Trust. Welcome, Becky. Thank you very much. To Becky's left is my colleague, Bruno Carrasco, who's the Director General of the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at the Asian Development Bank. Bruno leads ADB's knowledge program, its innovation, its policies, and strategies in all thematic and sector operation areas, and ensures compliance with environment and social safeguards policies. He oversees the administration of trust funds and global funding initiatives and provides advice to management on strategic and policy matters. And importantly, climate change and biodiversity conservation are both under Bruno's direction. Next to Bruno is Pascal Martinez from the Global Environment Facility. Pascal has been at GEF for 6 years. He's a senior climate change specialist, but his focus is really on nature with climate. And so very relevant for this panel. He's a forest engineer, worked with FAO, and actually was in the wildlife management business in France for quite some time. And then to my immediate right is Patricia Zurita. Patricia is the CEO of BirdLife International, which is the world's largest nature conservation partnership, bringing together over 100 organizations worldwide to conserve birds, their habitats, global biodiversity, and working with people at the local level to achieve sustainability in the use of natural resources. An economist by training, prior to BirdLife, Patricia was the executive director of the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund, where I had the pleasure of working with her when I was at the World Bank. She moved to BirdLife about 5 years ago. Then on Zoom, remotely, we have the pleasure of having two guests. Kwankao Sinhasane is the conservation manager at Bird Conservation Society of Thailand. Kimem, her nickname, all Thais have nicknames, is a conservation manager of the Bird Conservation Society of Thailand and has been working in the field of plant-animal interaction and habitat restoration and management for more than 10 years. She's now working with BCST for the last year on several bird conservation projects, both for migratory birds and residential birds, and is at the same time completing her PhD at Griffith University in Australia. So welcome, Kimem. And then finally, last but not least at all, is Alex Shang, who's the Secretary General of the Eco Global Foundation. Alex is also the Executive Director of the Yellow Sea Wetland Institute. In the same time, he is the Global Executive Committee member of ICLE, the Local Governments for Sustainability, the Vice Convener of the IUCN China Member Network. He focuses on eco-civilization development and sustainable development, protected areas management, and capacity building, and is actually very focused on international cooperation, so China interacting with global partners on these issues. He received a BA in economics from Columbia College and an MBA from Harvard Business School. So with that, I'm happy to introduce our panel, and I would like to now ask you to enjoy a short video before we have the panelists speak. Thank you.
Wetlands and shore areas are crucial for birds, nature, climate, and people. Not only their daily survival depends on their health, but with our changing climate, wetlands desperately need to be protected and restored to help us resist climate change's destructive coastal impacts. COVID and recent climate-induced global environmental catastrophes teach us that our post-COVID recovery must put nature, therefore people, at the heart of the trillions of dollars the planet will spend to emerge from the economic devastation wrought on us. Ambitious and diverse financing and investment mechanisms can provide the resources necessary to take regional conservation to the next level, generating benefits not only for nature but for people, now and in the future.
ADB is excited to work with BirdLife International, the East Asian-Australasian Flyway Partnership, and other partners on this innovative project. ADB shares your commitment to environmental sustainability and climate resilience. We also know that there are prerequisites for economic growth and poverty reduction in Asia. As we rebuild from the pandemic, we must seize the opportunity to secure a green, resilient, and inclusive future. Our Flyway-wide approach is a great example of how we can do this through strong international cooperation. ADB is proud to lead on efforts like this with a blended approach that brings together effective public and private finance.
The uniqueness and core values of the East Asian-Australasian Flyway Partnership is based on the diversity of our 39 partners, which consist of national governments, international NGOs, intergovernmental organisations, as well as the private sector. As a partnership, we work together to promote healthy wetlands for migratory waterbirds and local communities by enhancing research, monitoring and information exchange. This collaboration with Asian Development Bank and BirdLife International will contribute to biodiversity conservation, improving livelihoods for local communities and important wetlands, especially vulnerable populations including women, youth and poor communities.
We will mobilize our extensive network of local partners along the Flyway to collaborate with the East Asian-Australasian Flyway Partnership and consult with local governments, civil society actors, including other local conservation groups and representatives of local communities and indigenous peoples, to identify, design and implement the activities required to restore, protect and nurture these critical ecosystems with an innovative mechanism of blended finance.
Our unique Flyway partnership presents most countries along the Flyway, will rush us up and complement existing activities, ensuring exponential results. Great.
A recent addition at the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Korean get both tidal flags to the already inscribed Chinese Shang wetlands across from each other on the Yellow Sea immeasurably strengthens our momentum in protecting and restoring these priceless sites. A critical stopover for the 50 million migratory waterbirds.
It's not only birds to benefit. The wetlands along the
See it? So our apologies. I understand there was some audio difficulty with the video. It is online. You can watch that on either the ADB website or the BirdLife YouTube channel. Rather than run it again, we'll go ahead straight into the panel discussion. We have a few minutes for each panelist, and then if we have time, we'll have a Q&A. And so let me first invite Bruno to give his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Warren. I'm very excited to be here at the launching of the Regional Flyway Initiative and very pleased to have with us eminent persons as panelists, leading voices in climate change and nature-based solution. In my talks, I'm going to simply bring a little bit more the context of the Regional Flyway Initiative as far as ADB is concerned and how it fits into that context where we're ramping up work in terms of climate change. We have Strategy 2030, which is our long-term strategy, and under that we look at aligning ADB operations towards the Sustainable Development Goals. As part of that work, we have identified 7 operational priorities, one of which I want to focus on is Operational Priority 3, which is all about tackling climate change, building climate and disaster resilience, and strengthening environmental sustainability. To begin with, we recognize that since 2018, when the strategy was put together, there has been increasing pressure both on our habitat, nature diversity, biodiversity, as well as, of course, the climate change and the speed at which we're seeing some of the degradation. We certainly feel that in that context, ADB is very committed to strengthening our work in this area, and we have announced that we are looking at becoming the climate finance bank of the Asia-Pacific region. I would like to identify 3 areas where we are now looking at to strengthen our climate change emergency and biodiversity support. I think the first one that I'd like to mention is that we are looking at ramping up climate adaptation financing to reach an ambition of about $34 billion. This is part of the bigger program that was announced where we were committing up to $100 billion in terms of greater ambition from the $80 billion that we had previously. This is important in many ways, but I'd like to focus on how we have moved towards a better balance between adaptation and mitigation. Before we were doing roughly one quarter adaptation to mitigation, 3/4, and now we've moved up to 1/3 adaptation versus 2/3 mitigation. So that's an important driver of change for us. Secondly, we have the Nature Positive Investment Roadmap, which we are developing, and it will look at guiding more ambitious investments into nature-based solutions and, of course, support climate change. In that context, we also have the ADB Natural Capital Lab, which is going to be looking at how we can identify investments, bankable projects that will enable this work. As part of that work, we have a fundamental consideration towards how even nature-based solutions like the Regional Flyway fits into that context. So we have under the roadmap the Regional Flyway Initiative, which will be a key deliverable. We have approximately $3 billion in investment opportunities that we are looking at as part of this work. And we certainly want to also highlight that this fits nicely with the ADB's hallmark Regional Cooperation Integration Initiative. As part of the Regional Flyway Initiative, we are looking at developing a platform which supports, of course, as you've seen in the video, the migratory water birds, deliver climate adaptation and mitigation, as well as a very important consideration, which is helping the local communities to develop further opportunities. Suffice to say that this work fits under the broader green, inclusive, resilient recovery that we're looking at post-COVID. I think that I'd like to bring just a couple of examples to finish off my remarks. We have looked at climate resilient coastline investments in the past, and we have seen that in countries such as China, in countries such as the Philippines, we have come up with an estimate of approximately $200 billion of savings every year, as well as 2,000 lives that would have possibly been lost with flooding in these 2 countries. So clearly there is a very important developmental impact on this work. I would like also to mention that we have also looked at some work in terms of the impact on communities and employment opportunities. And we did another study where coastal wetlands were able to contribute to approximately 1.5 million rural employment across men and women in Bangladesh, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. So these are through small-scale fisheries activities. I'd like to also to mention that there is a very important dimension of supporting natural wetlands, mangrove recreation, and other activities, which also supports conservation factors and including a lot of the nature-based tourism and ecotourism. Finally, I would like to highlight that there was some wetland nature-focused work in the past undertaken by Asian Development Bank, and in particular there was a very well-recognized Jiangsu wetland protection project, which had many benefits and which has been recognized as the UNESCO World Heritage Nature Site. So now that's drawing in millions of visitors annually and has generated a lot of income and returns on those projects. Let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruno. Let me invite Patricia from BirdLife International, please.
Thank you. No, thanks so much, Bruno. This is fantastic, and I'm just going to start by really praising the leadership of the bank. This was an idea that we started discussing with the bank 2 years ago, and it came as a perfect opportunity to bring together a series of different things. It's the perfect blending project, actually, because it brings nature and climate. So we are addressing the climate crisis by using nature, but also using the magic of the migration on the East Asian Australasian Flyway as the guiding principle for helping us identify the most important wetlands through the flyway so we can actually protect them and restore them. But the advantage of this is that we're doing it through blended finance. So we are going to be bringing public funding from bilaterals and multilaterals like yourselves to governments, both at the national and subnational levels, but also grants to civil society and local communities that can help us look into the conservation and the protection and the restoration of these sites. Now, when you invest in these wetlands, and you've seen it before, and we're going to hear from Becky on the experience from the RSPB, you have the huge opportunity of engaging people and creating jobs at the local level. So now that we are trying to revamp the economy after the pandemic, this is a fantastic opportunity to channel funding to enable these local communities to restore their wetlands, have jobs, but at the same time start building up their resilience to climate change. So we're not only protecting extraordinarily important sites for nature and birds, but also we are protecting these sites that are incredibly important for getting us resilient and becoming more adaptable to a changing climate. Now, while we are doing that, we're also mitigating, because by protecting and restoring wetlands, we are ensuring that carbon stays on the ground, not only at the level of the trees and the mangroves, for example, but also blue carbon on the wetlands and themselves. So it by design became a really lovely initiative where we're bringing all of these elements together to prove that nature is part of the solution of the climate crisis and that we have to tackle them together. Now, one of the interesting things about the initiative is that it's not only all of these elements that we're bringing together, but who is involved in this. So we have, of course, the bank, and we, as I said, we are incredibly grateful and proud of the leadership that you have demonstrated. But we have the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, that is this group of governments and civil society throughout the Flyway that came together some years ago to figure out how can we make sure that the East Asian Australasian Flyway, that is the most threatened flyway of the planet, can be protected. So we have the EAFP Secretariat working with us, and BirdLife. BirdLife is, as Warren said, the largest partnership for nature. We have our partners on the ground, but in addition to our partners, what we're going to do is be reaching out to local communities and civil society on the countries where we're going to be working, so we can truly mobilize the restoration and the conservation of these sites. So what are we aiming to do? Mobilize between $2 and $5 billion in the next 20 years. That is the ambition. And at this time, at the COP, when we are asking for real action, this is a perfect demonstration of how we can make nature-based solutions work for climate, work for people in a place where that is incredibly important, and all of us guided by nature and our birds.
Thank you. And we'll come back to talk a little bit about the partnership a little bit later on. I'd like to now invite Pascal from GEF, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I would like to apologize for our CEO, which was very keen to come, tried to come, but it's so crazy, this kind of event, that it's very difficult sometimes to manage all the agenda. No, for me, hearing you, Bruno, and Christina, it's incredible how we are aligned in the sense of integration. You speak about integration, no? In all kind of scale of sense, integration is the DNA, sorry, of the JEF. We really believe that we need to work integrated the different sectors and the different funding windows to be able to achieve our goals, because all is related with all. And especially in this issue of flyways, of birds, I think it's one of the most tremendous example of how integration is needed. Integration, of course, between countries, and this is why this regional initiative is so relevant and so important for this critical biodiversity aspect, but also the integration also between the different within one country, each country within the different sectors. No? And this is also why in the strategy of the JEF also we try to promote as much as possible the policy coherence, to put all the stakeholders around the same table and work in the same direction, because we have seen and we see so many times that some policies inside of the countries may be contradictory. So we try to promote this integration, intersectoral integration, regional integration when it is relevant, and it's especially the case for with the flyways. But at the same time, we try to really make that all this, the energy is put in the same direction. And this is why also, you know, the JEF, well, it's a financial mechanism of different conventions. No? And here we have heard about, of course, biodiversity, we have climate, also the Convention to Combat Desertification. And what we try to promote in our project is to put all these funding windows together to enable and to trigger this energy which goes along the idea of putting together all the relevant stakeholders and try to also to have results in different arena. We see very well in our project that when we have results in biodiversity, we have also results in climate change. So for our donors, it's very interesting to see that the same dollar can bring different results. So this is why integration for me is like music in my ears when I heard you both. So the JEF, now we are in a very interesting moment, because we are in the just before the next we are in a replenishment period, which will begin in next July, and we are discussing with our donor countries, and we plan to increase the resources for the environment. And especially in the biodiversity arena, we plan to increase by 30% our allocation. Our allocation, I don't know if everybody knows it, but we are providing grants. So this is very important, because with our grants, it's enabled to trigger, to leverage co-financing quite substantively, because with $1 from the JEF, we are around $6-7. It depends on the topic, but $7 of leveraging and working with countries and banks in particular. It's very important, because with regional banks we are able to leverage even more and substantive and concrete co-financing. So I think it's very interesting to hear that this initiative is now on his way. That we are at the beginning of a new era, new cycle for the JEF, which is very promising with more financing. So as we promote also the regional approach, I think it's very important also to mention that our process is a country-driven process. So if we want to support regional approaches, it has to come from the countries themselves. It's a decision of the country, because the JEF allocates grants to countries, but then the countries decide what they want to do with it. I prefer climate change, I prefer biodiversity, I will make both, I will work in this area and this area. So they have to decide. So this is very important to let the audience know that in order for us to support regional initiatives, it has to be a country-driven process. No? So with that, I would like to leave it here, and really very, very keen and very happy to be associated to this event, because this is crucial and a very good example of what the GEF can support with public money, and also, I didn't mention it, sorry, but we have also a blended finance component, and we work also with different kind of financing associated with our funds. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pascal, and I think we all look forward to working with the Global Environment Facility as a partner in this initiative. I think if you're looking for leverage, we'll get you that. So let me now turn to Becky from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Please, Becky.
It's so interesting hearing about this initiative today, because I think what's really clear being here at COP26 is that everyone's realizing that climate change has no boundaries. We know that nature has no boundaries, and flyways are really symbolic of that. And we know that there are those kind of multiple benefits that can come from tackling these issues through kind of, single initiatives, single places. You get these multi-benefits, and you get this blend of kind of, civil society, private finance, public finance enabling that. So it's a great example of that, I think. And here at the RSPB, we're one of the founding members of BirdLife. We absolutely believe in that kind of bird life approach around the world, of building capability, of using those kind of local capacities on the ground to deliver this kind of project. And we're, RSPB is big in itself. We work around the world as well as here in the UK. You mentioned our 200 nature reserves. We do an enormous amount. And of that, I wanted to particularly focus on our coastal wetland work, because that feels really relevant to this initiative. So we have 41,000 hectares under our management of coastal habitat. And in the last kind of 20 years, we've restored about 880 hectares of coastal habitat. And that's about a third of the total that's been created in the UK so far. So we really kind of are building our experience of how to do this work. And I wanted to talk about two examples of what we've done, because I think they're really relevant to this initiative. So the first is Medmerry, which is on the south coast of England. It's Europe's largest open coast managed realignment project, so it's big. It's basically a case where there was a big artificial sea defence, a shingle sea defence, that was being constantly breached, and it was costing the Environment Agency millions of pounds to kind of sustain this sea defence, and it wasn't even working. It was being breached and causing enormous flooding damage. There's a community of Selsey who live just inland, and they were being kind of flooded out and at risk from obviously rising sea levels. So we got involved with the Environment Agency and did a huge amount of work to create a big new intertidal area, basically. So we broke the sea defence, let the sea in, that dissipates the force of the flooding, and you get this fantastic new intertidal habitat, which is of course brilliant for bird life and other wildlife. And not only that, but it provides a fantastic place for local people to be able to kind of exercise in terms of their health and well-being. When you go to Medmerry now, you just see everybody on the kind of footpaths, the cycle paths, really using it for their own benefit as well. So in terms of kind of, providing that blended solution through kind of a blended initiative, it's a really great example of that. So it cost £28 million altogether to deliver it, which sounds like a lot of money. Maybe not to you guys, sounds like a lot to me. But the estimated benefits are £90 million worth. So it absolutely has delivered in terms of all those different aspects. And there's an annual saving of about £250,000, which is what it was costing to sustain that that sea defence that no longer really worked. The second example is even bigger. So that's Wallacy Island, which is Europe's largest coastal wetland restoration. That's on the Greater Thames Estuary down in Essex. Sussex, the south coast of England. And that kind of, it was a walled off island that had really sunk below sea level because of agricultural use over hundreds of years. And what we did there was we worked with the company that were building Crossrail, which is a new kind of rail initiative in London, to get their waste, so 3 million tonnes of soil, was shipped around the coast to build a new, again, intertidal wetland, basically, to raise it up above the sea level so that it could dissipate the force of the sea, but also, again, provide fantastic new habitat for wildlife and for birds in particular. And again, you know, that was an example of kind of, you know, government, private money, civil society, all kind of being underpinned by the science in terms of these really kind of scaled up responses to what we know we're facing in terms of kind of climate change and habitat loss. So we produced a report in 2018 called Sustainable Shores, which kind of set out, you know, the forward agenda for this kind of work. And that showed that since World War II here in the UK, we've lost about 15% of our salt marsh, about nearly kind of 50% of our shingle habitat. So we're losing this habitat all the time, and that's because of climate change, sea level rise, you know, coastal squeeze, development, kind of recreational needs, squeezing out the habitat. And we think there are about 30,000 hectares of new coastal wetland that could still be created here in the UK. So that's just in the UK, and that's tiny compared to the kind of initiative you're talking about. So it absolutely can be done, and I think that this kind of blended approach that this initiative offers is absolutely key to it. So I would just really kind of say there are kind of, you know, equivalent work going on. You know, we've got the kind of the Wallacy is twinned now with a national nature reserve over in China. You've got the north kind of coast position, the North Sea positioning of Wallacy is very similar to the positioning for the Yellow Sea. So you've got all enormous kind of sharing of expertise and knowledge that can go on. And, you know, I think we would just kind of really want to be part of that and want to be sharing that kind of experience that we've built up and demonstrating that it absolutely can be done and it can deliver at scale.
Thank you, Becky. And clearly there is a lot that we can learn from your vast experience in the UK and apply that internationally, and we look forward to exploring how to do that in the future. Let me now turn to Kimin from the Bird Conservation Society of Thailand, which is the BirdLife International partner in Thailand. Welcome, Kimin. Over to you, please. We're having audio difficulties, Kimin. We can't hear you right now. They're working on that. Shall we? So while they work on the technical difficulties, can we go ahead and move to Alex, and Kimin will come back to you. Oh, is it okay now? Oh, okay. Sorry, so Alex, maybe we can't hear you either. So we'll come back to both of you. Well, let me just then, while we're waiting to get the technical issues fixed, let me sort of recap the way I see this as somebody who's been involved in this kind of work for a long time. The problem with much of what we do on biodiversity conservation and on climate change is often that it's either not sustainable because it's not owned locally, or there's not national ownership or subnational ownership. But often when there is local ownership, it's not at a scale that actually achieves broader biodiversity and climate change objectives. And I think that what this Regional Flyways initiative brings to the table is the combination of community-based, community-driven management of local resources for the benefits of the community, for poverty reduction, for employment, obviously for biodiversity conservation, at the national level for those same purposes. But at the international level, it benefits the globe. And it achieves the scale at the international level that from whether you're talking about climate resilience, which tends to be more local, but can also have very, very serious national and regional implications, climate mitigation, sequestration of carbon, and then the global benefits of biodiversity conservation. All of these come together, including financing, the blended finance that you talked about. So I think that this is a combination of, it's the positive perfect storm instead of the negative perfect storm. It's bringing everything together, and I think that working together we have the potential to generate real global impacts that are sustainable, that benefit local populations, as well as have regional and international development benefits on a long-term basis. I personally am very happy to see that it's a long-term plan. We're talking about enough money from institutions like ADB and other partners that we can actually mobilize the resources necessary, use and I'm going to come back to Bruno in a moment to talk about how ADB actually does this leveraging with our concessional finance and with our normal finance. But we have an opportunity from the ADB side to really help mobilize much greater resources. When not if, when the Jeff becomes our partner here, then that'll even stimulate even more. And then finally, it's so critical to have partners like BirdLife, and in particular BirdLife on this, because of your partnership of national partners, but also because of your science. BirdLife brings the science to the table that ADB can never hope to have. It's not within our mandate to have that. Opportunities to work with institutions like organizations like the Royal Society for Protection of Birds that have a long history. So I think this is the positive perfect storm coming together. And I do apologize. Are we okay? So Bruno, maybe let me put you on the spot. If you can talk a little bit about, blended finance is not a new thing for ADB. We've done it in a lot of different areas, but we've never done it in the biodiversity, climate adaptation area at this scale. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about how ADB puts together from our side, from a multilateral development bank, how we try and bring together the kinds of partners to achieve the kind of blended finance we're talking about.
As we've discussed, it's all about building those partnerships, and those partnerships could be based on knowledge, and we have a lot of that coming through in this panel. We have partnerships in terms of financing arrangements, and we have other sorts of partnership. Our department is Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department, and it builds on partnership innovation and finance. We think that ADB, like other multilateral development banks, we have the long-term financing. And these projects all require that long-term tenor to be able to sustain other financing initiatives. So our work is sometimes described as our anchor financing. When we have that anchor financing in place, then we can more easily capture additional financing because we've got that commitment over time. And that is very important, not just as a sign of commitment, but also to recognize the nature of these projects. Long-term financing is required. We need to bring in the blended finance, and that is basically combining the different financing instruments that we have. So we have basically what we refer to as our sovereign financing, government guaranteed, and that gives us a fairly good rate in terms of what we can pass on to our clients. But we need the grant financing. Without that, it's going to be very difficult to capture the private financing, because at the end of the day, they need to capture a certain return. And I think the solution to this partnership is being able to blend in the different types of financing and instruments. We're working very closely with many of the bilaterals who are also very keen on this work. we're hoping that Jeff is also excited about this and we can get that commitment, and certainly your commitment on the knowledge side. If we do that well, I think that this could be a very, very exciting initiative that can capture, and to the point that was made before, the countries, they need to put in their contributions also, because without that ownership, it's always, the question of, how is that commitment? So if we bring all of that together, we should have a perfect storm, I think, as you were referring to, Warren, to get this off the ground.
Can I jump and say it's already working? Because we already have no, I'm serious. Initially, we have this funding from the Asian Development Bank to start building up all of the plan for how are we going to bring all of this funding in the next 20 years. We just managed to get approval from the Moore Foundation, so it's bringing in private funding, who's going to help us start mapping out all of the private funding available in the region, so we can start securing that and bringing it to the table while we are working on the plan on how we're going to invest it. So it's something that is already happening, and we haven't even started yet. So it's very exciting. I think it is, as Warren put it, as the positive perfect storm that is bringing climate and nature, local civil society, communities and governments, and public and private funding to actually make sure that we can protect these sites and restore them.
Absolutely. Let me just add one thing. We have $1 million technical assistance. We were so excited about it that we moved this very fast forward, and I think now we're about to start with that implementation. So everything is good.
So things are moving already, and I think we've got the technical glitch fixed. Yeah. So Kim, so let's see if we can hear you this time. Over.
Can you hear me now, everyone? A bit about like the thing that Becky just said. The most important thing is more about the knowledge sharing that we learn a lot from the BirdLife partner, and also as we are the BirdLife partner in Thailand, and also we have the same goal about to conserve the bird and about the habitat management. And I know this is like a great role for all of the civil society, try to take the action in terms of the conservation. So especially around Southeast Asia, we have like many great places, mostly very high risk of the biodiversity, like in Thailand. From the research show, it's like 16% of the animal and the plant species exist in just a small country like us. But anyway, to make us quite different, it's like we have a great partner from the BirdLife and also from the ADB. So that's why we're quite different from other NGO that based in Thailand, because we can get some knowledge sharing and also some supporting that make our project is quite different. But the thing that I want to touch, it doesn't mean like we bring the knowledge and we try to apply something in Thailand. The thing that we learn is also something from the bottom up by the local knowledge. That's why this is quite a key component that I would like to share with you today. It's like we have a great collaboration with the local government. And also we have a great collaboration with the local communities, which they try to apply their own knowledge and work in the place that we try to do. And one of the key places that we work with, especially is a part of the East Asian-Australian Flyway. We call this area is Pak Thale. Pak is mean mouth and Thale is the sea. That means this is a great habitat of many kinds of migratory shorebirds. For example, like a spoonbill sandpiper. If someone don't know that, no worry at all. But this species is quite a symbol of the critical endangered species in the IUCN list. But the thing that we can make it happen, it doesn't mean like we just try to protect this species. We talk to the communities, what they really want, and how we can apply the idea to be a part of our conservation project. Because we realize that we are the NGO, we are the civil society. Sometimes we just come and we go. But the most important person is the people who live around that area. That's why we use their knowledge, relate about the salt pan management. And this is the way that we use it for the habitat management. So from this one, we realize that we try to use the local knowledge to manage the area of the salt pan. And this also have some contribution to protect about the migratory shorebird. So the thing that we learn from them, we try to be friends with them because we know conservation project is the hard work. We need friends. That's why we have the international support, and also we have friends on site that is the local community try to support us. And in this case, I would like to show you about one of the great study in Thailand. This one is the Park Thale Preserve Center. Why this one is very unique? Because normally when we talk about a protected area, we're thinking about the government land. But this place is different. This place, we purchase the land by our partner to support us. And we use the knowledge from the local partner to manage to become an education center. And they become to know like how important of their area, because they realize there are many tourists around the world visit this site because they're really interested about the migratory shorebird, like spoonbill sandpiper that I just mentioned. In this case, that's why we know if we try to contribute something for the local people, we accept their knowledge, how to manage the area. That is can be a great contribution in terms of the conservation management in long run. So that's why this is one thing that we can see like about habitat management is very important if we try to collaborate with the local communities. And apart from that, the key stakeholder on site is a part of the government sector too. That's why we try to build the relationship between the Department of Marine and the Coastal Resources of Thailand. Then we try to make the big action plan together. We try to support the local community. We get involved with the local government. We design the action plan, and we also try to propose this plan into the provincial level. Try to make people recognize this area. So that's why this one can be a quite good perception in terms of conservation, in terms of migratory shorebird, because we know once we conduct the project and the local people cannot get anything from that, the project will slow down, decrease. So I just want to say, we're really grateful that we have many support from the East Asian Australian Flyway networking group. And apart from that, we're so excited about the ADB Regional Flyway Initiative because we know this is going to be a great resources for us to make many wetland places in Thailand can be more powerful. And apart from that, because this is a flyway, if we just want to protect only in Thailand, number of endangered species cannot be preserved. We have to work in the team. So this is the thing that I want to share today. And the concept of our organization is bird-human coexisting. It means even we want to conserve the bird, we also really want to make people can live. That means we concern on their livelihood. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim Em. And of course, Thailand, like many other countries, has been heavily affected by the COVID pandemic. And for those of you in the audience, Thailand is opening up this month, and I'm sure that Kim Em will welcome you to their sites for birders who want to go out and have some fantastic birding in Thailand. So thank you very much, Kim Em. Let me finally go to Alex, who's the Secretary General of the Eco Global Foundation. Alex, please.
Thank you, Warren. Can you all hear me, see me okay? Hello? Yeah, I see the noise from Kim and I guess. Okay, great. My distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you in Glasgow, in Europe. Good afternoon, good evening to the people joining online from the rest of the world. It's a great pleasure for me to having this opportunity speaking at this panel. I think this is a very important year. This is a very important time, and I thank the EAFP, ADB, and BirdLife for organizing this study event. Not too far away, we had a successful phase 1 event of CBD COP15 in Kunming and China. And I think states leaders, top businessmen and women, international organization representatives, and so on, we have talked about this many times, that the climate change and the biodiversity loss are some very interrelated issues. So at this COP26 in Glasgow, we're talking about the ADB's EAFP project. Is a great opportunity. And as we heard from Bruno, I want to tribute the ADB's and its partners' work in Jiangsu province of China, especially in the Yancheng city along the Yellow Coast. Just about a decade ago, the project, as you remember, starts from December of 2011, and it finished the phase 2 by January of 2019. How much ADB invested? Actually, not too much. If we look at today's scale, it's only around $29 million US, but it's really achieved a lot. The Jiangsu Yancheng Wetland Protection Project was designed to help China to improve the management of the coastal wetlands and preserve their valuable ecosystem functions. The project addressed constraints in protecting the wetland ecosystem by adopting an integrated approach. This includes the protection of the 2 natural reserves, the management of 2 forest farms, and a capacity building to improve ecosystem management. As a result, if we now look at some of the numbers we gathered by the end of last year, the protection of the wetland ecosystem has been enhanced. A total of around 4,554 hectares of wetlands were restored and rehabilitated, providing healthy and critical habitats for wildlife. This has enhanced the biodiversity richness in the natural reserve. In addition, the livelihood and the participation of local communities has also been improved immensely. The project created employment opportunities for more than 2,900 people in the area, nearly half of which are women. Through improved ecological farming and the fishing practices, as well as ecotourism and the forest-based small businesses. Around 40 hotels and restaurants have opened in the project area since 2017, providing jobs and additional revenues. And it also promoted the effective participation of local communities. The beneficiaries were trained in eco-farming, fishing, and off-farm skills. 60% of beneficiaries are women. The training activities strengthen the community awareness and skills for wetland-friendly farming and fishing practices. So I just want to echo what Bruno has opened the panel earlier, that the ADB project in China, Jiangsu province, Yancheng city, along the Yellow Coast wetland, about a decade time, was very successful. Now, our organization, Eco Foundation Global, as the China-based nationwide foundation, we are honored to working with many of you, the BirdLife, RTB, ADB, GEF, over the past years. And our work in Yancheng started from about 2017. While as a member of IUCN, we respond to the IUCN's 2 resolutions. The first was introduced in Jeju, Korea, 2012. The second was in Hawaii, 2016, all calling for the countries along the Yellow Sea coasts, namely China, North and South Korea, to increase the protected areas percentage along these very important coast, crucial for the East Asia Australian Flyway. For example, Yancheng, as you all know, is right in the middle of the flyway, about 7,000 kilometers down from the Alaska, far east of Siberia, and about 7,000 kilometers from New Zealand and Australia. Every year, more than 6 million of rare migrating birds taking Yancheng as an important area for roosting, netting, resting, and so on. I think it's a great success of ADB's projects and it caught the government's attention. So by around the time of 2017, from the central to the local government of China, we want to make a lead to answering IUCN's resolution by nominating altogether 16 sites, 6 provinces and 2 cities along the Yellow Sea coast to apply for the UNESCO's World Natural Heritage. And the first one was the 2 natural reserves. Both are ADB's projects covered as a first one. So together with RFPB, BirdLife, we are honored since 2017. We're organizing the first symposium focusing on the EFP migrating birds and the coastal wetlands conservation. And it was the first time for the 3 Yellow Sea countries, government representatives, to sit in one meeting room to seriously discussing about how to responding to the IUCN resolutions, how to coordinating the conservation and sustainable development work. And we are extremely happy to see that the DPRK government decided in the year afterwards to join the Ramsar, one of the first UN conventions they joined, and has also nominated 2 of the important coastal wetlands to be the Ramsar wetlands. And stories afterwards, I think most of you have already know that, sent to the BirdLife, RSPB, and many international organizations, NGOs, academias, and especially to the Australian government's support that Yancheng has successfully been nominated as a natural heritage site in the July of 2019 in Baku, and which becomes the first natural heritage site along the Yellow Sea coast on the EAAF. And successful story continues, and we welcome to our colleagues from South Korea, also successfully credited the Ghetto coastal area as a natural heritage site. And both governments has committed for even larger sites, China for phase 2 by 2023, South Korea phase 2 by 2024. So Bruno, I have to tribute for all the wonderful work through the ADB projects that you and your colleagues has initiated back to 2011. Successful story has been expanding. And Eco Foundation Global, together with our partners, international partners, and we since then also work very closely with the local governments and the communities. Our work has expanding from building a consensus among the international partners. We are doing some actual work, as for example, Kim has mentioned. We are investing with the local governments in building world's largest museum on wetlands, which is about to open in 2 months' time, the beginning of December. The city wetland park has already started by May 1st of this year, with both of which are important sites for us to expanding our ecotourism and our wetland education projects that we learned from our partners like WWT in London and the WWF, Maipo Wetland Park in Hong Kong, as an important site for eco civilization, education, and tourism. And we also work with Academia Research Institute through our Yellow Sea Wetland Institute platform. We have successfully applied for China central government's Blue Coastal Project, which is restoring thousands of hectares of areas along the natural reserves of the Yancheng wetlands. The central government will invest around 300 million RMBs in the next years on the natural restoration. And we work with IUCN and with China's Ministry of Natural Resources. We're establishing the world first nature-based solution center in China, and will be located in Yancheng. So these wetland restoration projects, we will make sure that they are adopting the nature-based solutions. So we make sure this time we will do it right. Last but not least, as you all probably remember, since 2017, CMS has a resolution, then followed by Ramsar 2018's COP, and CBD, I think in their 2019, and most recently IUCN Marseille, all has resolutions. It was calling for establishing a very important platform, Global Coastal Forum. I think this initiative was first submitted by our colleagues from Philippines, but due to the COVID and other things, it never really happened. And from the Yancheng Symposium last year, the Chinese government is willing to put in the resources, answering the call from the international community. And we would like to upgrading the Yancheng Symposium into the first global coastal forum in this December 12th. So using this opportunity, I would like also to send in the invitation for all of you in Glasgow and also online, your organizations and so on, to contribute and to participate and to shaping this new platform called Global Coastal Forum. With that, Warren, I want to first finish my introduction, paying my tribute to ADB, BirdLife, EAFP, RSPB's colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And we recognize and highly appreciate the leadership that China at the national, regional, local government levels and with organizations such as yours have shown. That leadership is instrumental in getting this flyway going. I just want, we're out of time. Before I thank the panel very quickly, I want to note that in parallel with this event, as is typical at these climate COPs, there's lots of things happening at one time. So in parallel with this was the signing of the MDB statement on nature positive investments. So if you, we hope you were watching us, but that will be recorded and you may want to take a look at that as well because it's a very important step in the right direction. So with that, let me thank the panel, those here and in Thailand and in China, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thank you.
Alex, good job.